Dāmodara ki jai, Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtarashitashmad Śrīla Bhaktivedānta Nārāyaṇa Swami Mahārāja Śrīla Gurudev ki jai, Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtarashitashmad Śrīla Bhaktivedānta Vaman Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai, Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtarashitashmad Śrīla Bhaktivedānta Swami Mahārāja Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai, Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtarashitashmad Śrīla Bhakti Pragyan Keshava Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai, Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtarashitashmad Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosvāmī Prabhupada ki jai, Nitila Pravishta Mahabhagavat Śrīla Gokṣaras Babaji Mahārāja ki jai, Nitila Pravishta Śrīla Satchidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Nitila Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Mahārāja ki jai, Śrī Rupanu Gaudiya Guru Varga ki jai, Śrī Rup Sanātana Bhatta Raghunath, Śrī Jeev Gopal Pada Das Raghunath, Śrī Gosvāmī Prabhu ki jai, Śrī Dāmodarāṣṭakam Ramanantari Śrī Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai, Nama Chai Śrīla Haridas Thakur ki jai, Prem se kaho Śrī Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Śrī Advaita Gadadhar Śrīvāsari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Śrī Kshetra Mandal Gaura Mandal Vraja Mandal Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Sarva Abhishta Bhirati Giriraj Mahārāja ki jai, Śrī Radha Kund Shama Kund ki jai, Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi ki jai, Śrī Tulsi Maharani Vidna Devi ki jai, Śrī Bhakti Devi ki jai, Śrī Purnamasi Yogamaya ki jai, Śrī Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai, Śrī Dāmodarāṣṭakam ki jai, Śrī Satyavrata Muni ki jai, Śrīla Krishna Dvaipayan Veda Vyasdev ki jai, Śrī Sanātana Gosvāmīpāda ki jai, Jai Śrīla Gurudev ki jai, Śrī Dāmodarāṣṭakam ki jai, Kartik Vrat ki jai, Vrat Palankari Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Urjeshwari Shri Vishvabhanu Nandini Śrīmatī Rādhikā Thakurani ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Dandavat Pranams, Hari Bol, Raseshwari Mataji. Alright, so I'm going to finally finish off this Dāmodarāṣṭakam. I read the first 7 chapters one after another every day, and then on the day when I was traveling, I had to leave too early in the morning and I wasn't able to finish. And so anyways, now I'm going to finish it. It's not so long, probably just take, I don't know how long it will take. I'm guessing like 15 minutes or something, 20 minutes. Verse 8. Namastestu dāmne, I'll sing it. Namastestu dāmne, sphurad dīpti-dhāmne, tvadīyodarāyātha, viśvasya dāmne, namo rādhikāyai, tvadīya-priyāyai, namo nanta līlāya, devāya tubhyam. Namo, respectful obeisance. Te, your. Astu, let it be so. Dāmne, to the celebrated rope binding your belly. Sphurad, splendorous. Dīpti-dhāmne, an abode of spiritual effulgence. Tvadīya-udarāyā, onto your belly. Tvadīya, your, udarāya, onto the belly. Atha, furthermore, viśvasya, of the entire universe of moving and non-moving entities. Dāmne, to the support. Namo, I bow down. Rādhikāyai, unto Śrīmatī Rādhikā. Tvadīya-priyāyai, unto your most beloved. Namo, respectful obeisance. Ananta līlāya, to your unlimited pastimes. Devāya, to the divine Lord. Tubhyam, to you. Translation. O Dāmodara, I offer my respectful obeisances to the celebrated rope binding your belly, for it is an abode of brilliant effulgence. I offer my respectful obeisances unto your belly, which supports the entire universe of moving and non-moving entities. I offer my respectful obeisances again and again to Śrīmatī Rādhikā, your most beloved. And I offer my respectful obeisances to you, my divine Lord, who performs unlimited transcendental pastimes. Dig-darśinī-ṭīkā. So now is the Bhav Anubhad, translating the essence of Srila Sanātana Gosvāmīpāda's commentary, his ṭīkā. Now, in this verse beginning with Namaste Stu, Sri Satyavrat Muni concludes his prayers, either for the purpose of attaining his cherished goal, or else due to the exuberance of the uncommonly excellent form of bhakti that has arisen in his heart. He offers separate respectful obeisances to the extraordinary rope binding Sri Bhagavan's waist, to his bodily limbs, and to his associates. And there's a footnote here. Let's see. Srila Sanātana Goswami has indicated these three, the rope binding Sri Krishna, his limbs, and his associates, with the words parikar, avayava, and parivar, respectively. Okay. The sage says, I offer my respectful obeisances to the wondrous rope binding your waist. What is that rope like? Considering this question, he adds, it is the abode or refuge of all splendid effulgence. Here, he intends to establish that due to being replete with unlimited effulgence, this extraordinary rope consists of the very nature of concentrated Brahma. The sage continues, next, I offer my obeisances to your belly, because your beauty and your Vatsalya Lila only manifest in matchless magnificence when your belly is bound by rope in this way. What is your belly like? The sage says, your belly is the basis of the entire universe, consisting of all created beings, both moving and non-moving. In fact, the lotus of the 14 planetary systems arose from the lotus-like navel of the center of your belly. Furthermore, on 2 occasions, Sri Krishna showed his mother Sri Yashoda Devi his Vishwarup, or universal form, while enacting his childhood pastimes in Vrindavan. There's a footnote on universal form. See Srimad Bhagavatam 10.7.35-36 and 10.8.37-39. It is therefore clearly understood that simply by binding Sri Krishna's belly, the entire universe becomes bound. In other words, the sage declares that by binding Sri Krishna, Sri Yashoda Devi had in fact brought the entire cosmos under her control. Furthermore, it is impossible to bind the all-pervading unlimited Lord, but he allowed himself to be bound, thereby displaying his bhakta vatsalya, or his exceptional affection for his devotees. By logic, it cannot be understood how all the unlimited universes are encompassed within Sri Krishna's belly. Yet even this wonderful belly of his was bound. Thus, the sage implies here that by allowing himself to be bound, and thereby allowing all the universes to be bound, a pastime completely beyond all logical considerations, Sri Bhagavan displayed his unparalleled opulence and grandeur, his Aishvarya. After the sage offers obeisances to the rope, he next offers obeisances to the Lord's belly, thus implying that the rope is resting there. Also, it is implied that he is offering obeisances in order of increasing superiority. At this point, the sage understands that only by the mercy of Sri Bhagavan's loved ones can he attain his cherished goal, and that which he cannot even conceive of. Only by the mercy of Bhagavan's loved ones can he attain to his cherished goal, and that which he cannot even conceive of. With this understanding, he offers obeisances to Sri Bhagavan's most beloved Bhagavati Śrīmatī Rādhikā by the words namo rādhikāyai. In fact, by offering obeisances to Śrī Rādhikā, the sage actually conveys his obeisances to all the gopis. Or, a different understanding is that the sage is offering his pranam to Śrīmatī Rādhikā alone, because he regards her as the foremost of all the gopis. Srila Sanātana Gosvāmī now sheds light on why the sage uses the word Rādhikā. Śrī Radha is constantly immersed in Śrī Bhagavan's worship, aradhana. That is, she is forever wrapped in arousing his pleasure. It is through this word alone, aradhana, that one can understand the profound meaning of Śrī Radhika's name. Therefore, the sage says to Shri Krishna, Śrī Radhika is tvadīya-priyāyai, your most beloved. Alternatively, Radhika can be understood by its conventional sense without any consideration of etymology. In that case, it is understood that the sage says, even without considering her worship, her aradhana of you, she is simply your nitya priya, your eternal beloved. Furthermore, the sage says, due to the love that all your devotees, that all your tvadīya have for you, they are very dear to her. So what can be said about how dear you must be to her? In other words, you are her nitya priya, eternal beloved. In this way, the sage is proclaiming Śrīmatī Rādhika's exceptional love for Śrī Krishna. Yeah, so tvadīya can either mean your, or tvadīya can mean what is your own, so your own devotees. So, tvadīya-priyāyai can mean that Radhika is your beloved, tvadīya-priyāyai, or it can be, so priyāyai can refer, or it could be tvadīya, your devotees, those who are, your devotees are priyāyai, very dear to her. So either she's dear to you, or your devotees are dear to her. Those are the two meanings of tvadīya-priyāyai. His words can be understood in two ways. I offer my respectful obeisances to you, the beloved of Radhika. Or, I offer my obeisances to your most beloved Śrī Radhika. Okay. Whoever loves you is worthy of adoration by the whole universe. Therefore, since Śrī Radhika is your most beloved, I offer my most respectful obeisances to her. At the end of his prayers, he wanted to describe Śrīmatī Rādhika's pastimes with Śrī Krishna, such as Ras Līlā, which are most worshipful. However, recognizing that such pastimes are extremely confidential, he did not describe them explicitly. And my Param Gurudev has an annotation here. Annotation by Srimad Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosvāmī Mahārāja. It's quite long. Let's read it. Generally, the statement namo nanta līlāya is understood to mean, I offer my obeisances exclusively to Ananta Lila Bhagavan, that Sri Krishna whose pastimes have no end. However, directing his attention towards Sri Satyavrat Muni's inner intention, and driven by his own personal bhav, Srila Sanātana Gosvāmī has revealed a confidential meaning of the above phrase. He explains that the sage is actually offering his obeisances directly to Sri Rasa Lila. The word ananta means that which has no limit or ends, or in other words, eternal, unending, or innumerable. According to Sanskrit grammar, the word līlāya is the singular fourth case of the word līla because it is conjuncted with nama. The syllable li means to embrace, and la means to accept. Thus, with the word lila, it is understood that the sage is saying, I offer my obeisances to Rasa Lila, or in other words, I offer my obeisances to Ras Lila and other pastimes in which Sri Krishna accepts the gopis' embraces. Therefore, in his above explanation, Srila Sanātana Gosvāmī explains that Ananta Līlāya also refers to all of Sri Bhagavan's pastimes in Gokul, and thus it is understood that the sage is offering his obeisances to all of Sri Bhagavan's pastimes. In this way, Srila Sanātana Gosvāmī has also made meaningful his own statement, madhurena samapayet. All should end sweetly. Here, one more point must be carefully noted. In this final verse of Dāmodarāṣṭakam, Śrīla Sanātana Gosvāmīpāda is informing us that although Sri Krishna's pastimes such as Ras Līla are the most exalted of all his Līlas, they are highly confidential and therefore not to be described directly. For this reason, Sri Satyavrat Muni has offered his obeisances to such pastimes by just hinting at them. By this it is clearly understood that it is completely improper to hear and sing Ras Līla here and there, wherever and whenever one pleases. Moreover, if on the pretense of eradicating their less, unqualified persons contemplate or imitate Ras Līla, even if only within their minds, they will commit the offense of diminishing its honor and sanctity, and will surely become degraded. Then, like the immature Prakrit Sahajyas, they will become lusty and attached to a sensuous lifestyle. In order to determine whether a person who desires to hear and sing Ras Līla has the proper motive and eligibility, one must carefully study what has been explained at the end of the description of Ras Līla itself, found in Śrīmad Bhagavatam. Naitat samatcharejatu manasapi hyanishvara vinashyatyacharan modhyad yatarudro dichan vishan. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 10:33-30. Those who are not Ishvaras, who are powerless and helplessly controlled by the laws of karma, should never imitate the Lord's pastimes even within their minds. Like a person who foolishly imitates Lord Shiva by drinking poison generated from the churning of the ocean, they will certainly be destroyed. This means that if a person is not truly qualified and competent, he should never contemplate, perform, or imitate Ras Līla, even within his mind. For example, when the demigods and demons were churning the ocean of milk and poison rose to its surface, only Lord Shiva himself was capable of consuming that poison. So, if an ineligible person pretends to be extremely qualified and hears and sings Ras Līla, which will act just like poison for him, he will immediately die. That is, he will surely become entangled in the deadly grip of worldly life. Since Ras Līla is the crown jewel of all of Sri Bhagavan's pastimes, the fruit of hearing about it, singing it, and remembering it is the crest jewel of all attainments. Therefore, those who are eligible to devotedly honor it must undoubtedly be the crest jewels of all exalted devotees. Someone who is diseased at heart, who is lusty and unqualified, should not, in any way, indulge in discussing Ras Līla. For example, in order to dispel nescience, it is compulsory to attain complete knowledge by seeking the highest education in a university. A kindergarten student, however, will not be allowed admission directly into the highest level of study. Similarly, it is inappropriate to impart the foremost transcendental teaching, the description of Ras Līla, to an ignorant person who is attached to gratifying his senses. Alright, so that was the footnote for this. At the end of his prayers, he went on to describe Śrīmatī Rādhikā's pastimes of Sri Krishna, such as Ras Līla, which were the most worshipful. However, recognizing that such pastimes are extremely confidential, he did not describe them explicitly. Okay, so that's what we read about. Instead, according to the popular adage, madhurena samapayet, all should conclude sweetly, he submitted his obeisances to Madhur Ras through a slight hint with the words namo, nanta, līlāya. Next, Sri Satyavrat Muni says, devāya, I offer my respectful obeisances to the playful divinity, or to he who is super mundane, Sri Bhagavan. By mentioning Śrī Dāmodara Krishna's divinity, the sage implies that all of Sri Krishna's pastimes are similarly aprakrit, transcendental. Otherwise, since the word deva is derived from div, he who is ever rejoicing in playful sports, the sage says, O Deva, because you are eternally engaged in playful pastimes of Śrī Rādhikā, I offer my obeisances to you, the performer of unlimited pastimes, Ananta Līla. Here the word Ananta Lila certainly refers to all of Sri Bhagavan's pastimes in Gokul as well. Thus, yet another meaning of the sage's words is illuminated. I offer my respectful obeisances to each and every one of your transcendental pastimes. Thus ends the English rendition of the Dig-darśinī-ṭīkā on the 8th verse. Now we'll read the Dig-darśinī-vṛtti by my Śrīla Gurudev. As Śrī Satyavrat Muni was offering prayers to Śrī Dāmodara Krishna, he considered, in order to please Śrī Dāmodara Krishna, I must first please his associates, and especially his most beloved Śrīmatī Rādhikā. If I please her, I will easily attain the mercy of Śrī Dāmodara Krishna. With this consideration in mind, the sage proceeded to offer his respects to Śrīmatī Rādhikā with the words namo rādhikāyai, tvadīya-priyāyai. In the 5th verse, in the course of Śrī Satyavrat Muni's prayer, we notice an escalation in his mood of deep longing. The escalation of this mood culminates in this verse, in which he prays to Śrīmatī Rādhikā with wholehearted devotion for the perfection of his cherished goal. Following his example, the Raganuga Sadhak, after determining his cherished goal, should engage his Raganuga Sadhak should engage his time in praying, remembering, and worshipping Sri Bhagavan along with those associates of his who have the same sort of love for Sri Krishna as he longs to attain. Therefore, it is stated in the scriptures, Krishna smaranjanam chasya preshta nija samihitam tat katha ratashchaso kuryadvasam vraje sada. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1-294. The devotee should constantly remember Sri Krishna along with Sri Krishna's dearmost associates whom he chooses to follow. While permanently living in Vraj, he should become attached to always hearing the narrations of their pastimes of Sri Krishna. The methodology of Raganuga Bhakti is as follows. The devotee should remember his beloved, worshipful Lord, the youthful Nandanandan Sri Krishna, and the Lord's dear associates such as Sri Rupa Manjari or any other associate who possesses the mood that the devotee aspires for. Absorbed in hearing about their pastimes of Sri Krishna, he should reside forever in the cowherd settlement of Sri Nanda, including Sri Vrindavan, Sri Govardhan, Sri Radhakund, and so on, which are saturated with the particular humors of those pastimes. These pastime places of Sri Krishna are enriched with the Vrajvasi's love, especially Shringar Ras, conjugal love. Moreover, they act as stimulus to invoke a sadhak's emotions in his own specific mood, rasa udipaka, and prompt his remembrance of Sri Krishna's pastimes, lila udipaka. Therefore, it is prescribed that, if possible, one should physically reside in places such as Sri Vrindavan within the area of Sri Nanda's Vraj. But if it is not possible for him to reside there physically, he should always reside there by mind. Seva sadhaka rupena siddha rupena chatrahi tarbhava lipsuna karya vrajalokanusarataha. Shri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1-295. Desiring to obtain their particular bhav, he should closely follow in the footsteps of a particular associate in Vraj. Under their guidance, he should engage in service both in his external form as a sadhak and internally with his perfected spiritual body. The devotee should mentally serve Sri Krishna, Manasi Seva, in the way that he most cherishes in his internally conceived perfected spiritual body, his Siddharup, which is perfectly suited for rendering such service. He should perform such Manasi Seva under the guidance and direction of the Sakis, such as Sri Lalita and Sri Vishaka, and of the Manjaris like Sri Rupa Manjari. With his physical body in which he performs sadhan, sadhak rup, he should serve in the footsteps of Sri Rupa Gosvāmī, Sri Sanātana Gosvāmī, and the other Goswamis in their line. Śrī Satyavrat Muni realizes that Sri Bhagavan has never allowed himself to be bound in any of his other incarnations. Even Śrī Baladev Prabhu, despite living in Vraj where he is always absorbed in natural human-like pastimes, he has never allowed himself to be bound. Sorry, let me reread that. Even Śrī Baladev Prabhu, despite living in Vraj where he is always absorbed in natural human-like pastimes, has never allowed himself to be bound. Even Baladev never allowed himself to be bound. Yet, the Lord of all lords, Brajendra Nandan Shri Krishna, the son of Shri Nanda and Yashoda, was bound with the rope of his mother's affection, her Vatsalya prem for him. Therefore, that rope is not an ordinary piece of string. Rather, it is the direct embodiment of Shri Yashoda's maternal affection. Eager to fulfill his cherished desire or to become as fortunate as the rope, the sage begins this verse by first praying to that rope, dāmne. The sage says, tvadīyodarāyātha viśvasya dāmne, which indicates that Sri Krishna's belly is boundless, endless, fathomless, and indivisible. It has no limit, neither above nor below, so no one can bind it. Once when Sri Krishna was drinking his mother's breast milk, he yawned and showed her the countless universes present within his mouth. On another occasion, he ate some dirt while playing with his friends. After they complained to his mother, she forced to open his mouth to see whether or not he had actually eaten any. When she looked inside his mouth, she saw countless universes. She began to wonder, am I asleep or awake? Perhaps some illusion has overwhelmed me. She then bathed Krishna with cow dung and cow urine, and in order to ward off any evil spirit, she called for Brahmins to recite special mantras in order to protect her child, and she also gave in charity to everyone so that he would live a long, healthy life. Just see, the Vrajvasis give in charity so that Sri Krishna will be blessed with a long and healthy life. Yet Sri Krishna is he who blesses all the inhabitants of the three worlds. They perform so many rituals with vows and fervent prayers for his protection. Such are the sweet, intimate pastimes of Vraj. It is this intimacy that controls Sri Krishna. Quite a different reaction from when Krishna showed Arjuna the universal form. Shri Krishna's belly is the shelter of all the universes, full of moving and non-moving entities. It is therefore not possible to bind his belly. Yet, although it is boundless, it became limited because of his bhakta vatsalya, and therefore was bound. Therefore, Sri Satyavrata Muni says, I offer my obeisances to your glorious belly. Near the very end of his ashtak, the sage pays his obeisances to Śrī Rādhikā. Namo rādhikāyai tvadīya-priyāyai. Who is Śrīmatī Rādhikā? It is said, Krishna vancha purti rupa kore āradhane atayeva rādhikā nama purane vakhane. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila 487. Because she worships Sri Krishna by fulfilling all his desires, she has been called Rādhikā in all the Puranas. Radha Krishna eka atma dui deha dhori anyone vilase rasa ashwadana kori. Shri Radha Krishna are one soul, but they have manifested two forms just to relish each other's love by performing various sweet pastimes. Shri Prabodhananda Saraswati glorifies Shri Radha as follows. Yasya kadapi vasananchalake lanota dhanyati-dhānya pavanena kritartamani yogendra durgamagatir madhusudanopi tasya namostu vrishabhanu bhuvo dishepi. It's missing an I there. That's from Sri Radha Rasa Sudhanidhi, verse 2. I offer my obeisances to even the direction facing. the daughter of Vrishabhanu Mahārāja, Shri Rādhikā. She completely captivates the heart of Sri Madhusudan Sri Krishna, the performer of honey-like pastimes whom the greatest yogis rarely attain. When a gentle gust of wind playfully touches her cloth and carries its sweet fragrance toward Sri Krishna and touches his body, he embraces it to his heart and feels that his life has become blessedly fulfilled. He also prays, Venum karani patitam skalitam shikandam brashtam chapita vasanam vrajarajasuno yasya kataksha sharaghata vimurchitasya tam rādhikām paricharami kadarasena. My Gaudiya would quote this one a lot. That's from Śrī Rādhikā Sudhanidhi, verse 39. When the heart of Vrajaraja's son, Sri Krishna, is pierced by the arrows of Śrīmatī Rādhikā's sidelong glance, he drops his flute, his peacock feather falls from his turban, and his upper cloth becomes disheveled as he begins to faint. Oh, when will I render her loving service that is saturated with ras? In Srimad Bhagavatam 10.30.28, it is described that while the gopis were anxiously searching for Sri Krishna, they saw a young lady's footprints next to his and exclaimed, Anayaradita nuna Bhagavan Haririshvara Yanno Vihaya Govinda Pritoyam Anayadraha. Surely this gopi, Śrīmatī Rādhikā, has truly worshipped Aradito, Bhagavan Sri Hari, the supreme autocrat. Otherwise, why has Govinda left us all and only taken her with him? Shri Radha is Shri Krishna's eternal beloved. Srila Sanātana Gosvāmī confirms this in his commentary by saying, Tatash charadhana... Oh God, let me try that again. Tatash charadhanadhyana pekshaya sanitya priyāyai. Even without considering her worship of you, she is eternally your dearmost beloved, your nitya priya. Consequently, Shri Radha is dear to all. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami displays his firm dedication to Shri Radha and Shri Manashiksha. Madisha natatve vraja vipina chandram vrajavane. What? Madisha natatve Shraring tang natatve taratula sakitve tulalitam Vishakam shikshali vitarana gurutve priyasaro Girindro tat preksha lalita ratidatve smaramana. O mind, always regard Vrajavipina Chandra Shri Krishna to be the life and soul of my worshipful goddess, Śrī Rādhikā, the queen of Vrindavan. Meditate on her as my worshipful goddess, and consider Shri Lalita to be her peerless friend. Respect Shri Vishaka as my instructor in serving the divine couple, and regard Shri Radhakund and Giriraj Govardhan to be those who grant darshan of Shri Radha Krishna and bestow sublime attachments to their lotus feet. Here, Srila Das Goswami's inner feeling is, my most worshipful goddess is Shri Radhika alone, and Shri Krishna is the beloved of her life. My relation with Shri Krishna and my love for him is based on my relationship with Śrīmatī Rādhikā. Shri Krishna's unlimited intimate pastimes with Shri Radhika are especially difficult to describe. For this reason, Sri Satyavrat Muni uses the words namo, nanta, līlāya in order to offer his obeisances to the quintessence of all of Shri Krishna's unlimited pastimes, rasa lila. Srila Jiva Goswami writes, sporting in the water, feeding each other, roaming about in the forest, drinking honey liquor, and dancing are all included in Rasa Lila. Moreover, by saying namo, nanta, līlāya, Sri Satyavrat Muni is offering his obeisances to the performer of Ananta Lila, or to he whose pastimes have no end, Shri Krishna. Nothing but the mercy of the associates of Śrī Rādhikā and Śrī Krishna can fulfill our longing. Even if Śrī Krishna wanted to give us prem, he could only give us the prem that resides within his own heart, which is viśvasya jatiya prem, or the type of love that is felt by he who is the object of everyone's devotion. But our aim is to attain the prem that the gopis have, which is ashraya jatiya prem. Not viśvasya jatiya prem, but ashraya jatiya prem, or the type of love for Śrī Krishna that is felt by the devotees. Especially for those of us following the Rupanuga line, only Śrī Rupa Manjari and other Manjaris, the maidservants of Śrīmatī Rādhikā, can make our deepest hopes come true, because they know the perfect art of serving Śrī Radha Krishna. Our final prayer is Bhajami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhura Smitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Parardram Tato Mamanya Asti Gatir Nakapi. That's from the Śrī Vishakhanandana. Oh God, that's hard to say. Śrī Vishakhananda Bidha Stotram 131. I worship Śrīmatī Rādhikā, who has lotus petal eyes. I remember Śrīmatī Rādhikā, whose face is sweetly smiling. And I speak of her whose heart is melting with compassion. My life has no other purpose than serving her. Thus ends the Dig-darśinī-vṛtti on the 8th verse. Samapti, the end. And so now maybe I should read this tomorrow. It's quite long though, but it's so beautiful. I'll just read this introduction now. This is the appendix of Śrī Dāmodarāṣṭakam. It says, the following account is an excerpt from Śrīla Bhaktivedānta Keshav Gosvāmī Mahārāja, his life and teachings, by Śrī Śrīmad Bhaktivedānta Nārāyaṇa Gosvāmī. I sent this out in the Gaudiya Kirtan mailing list. Once during the month of Kartik, Śrīla Gurupād Padma had brought his noble presents to Śrī Keshav Ji Gaudiya Math. One day, he was sitting in his bhajan kutir chanting Harinam, absorbed in transcendental emotions. I had sat down nearby and was silently reading this chapter on Śrī Dāmbandhan Līlā from Śrī Gopal Champu. As I read, I became completely fascinated with Śrīla Jiva Goswami's beautiful description of this pastime. Finally, unable to restrain myself, I ran over to Śrīla Gurudev and said, Śrīla Jiva Goswami was a Mahapurush, a most exalted personality, and an unrivaled philosopher. At the same time, he was a transcendental Rasik poet whose work is eloquent, touching, and descriptive. Although such a combination of vast erudition and poetic artistry is rarely found in this world, when we read his narration of Śrī Dāmbandhan Līlā, we see the two unified in an astonishing manner. I began to read that description aloud. As I neared the end of the story, my Śrīla Gurudev suddenly began weeping. An incessant flow of tears cascaded down his cheeks, and other symptoms of spiritual ecstasy were clearly visible in him. I have only seen such an expression of extraordinary spiritual emotions once or twice in my life. And then here is what my Gurudev read to my Param Gurudev. Dāmbandhan Nibandhanam and Yamal Arjuna Mochanam, from chapter 8 of Gopal Champu. But I'm not going to read it now, but maybe I can read it tomorrow, and then we can start reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Maybe that would work good, huh? All right. Hare Krishna. Oh, wait. Yes, the whole Manashiksha is in Shikarini. That's correct. That meter. Oh, cool. I'll have to check that out. All right. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. I'm just going to do a short Jadvani. Jai Sachinandan Gaur Hari Ki Jai, Shri Radha Damodar Ju Ki Jai, Śrīla Gurudev Ki Jai, Śrīla Param Gurudev Ki Jai, Śrīla Prabhupada Ki Jai, Śrī Rupano Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai, Śrī Giriraj Mahārāja Ki Jai, Śrī Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai, Śrī Dāmodarāṣṭakam Ki Jai, Śrī Satyavrat Muni Ki Jai, Śrī Sanātana Gosvāmīpāda Ki Jai, Śrīla Gurudev Ki Jai, Śrī Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shinitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Vrindai Tulsi devāya-priyāyai viśvasya Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat pranams. Thanks for reading with me. Hari Bol. See you all tomorrow.